The 2026 Social Security Trustees Report was published in June. Most people over 60 have not heard about it. The ones who have read it are asking their financial advisors the same question. Is this real? The answer is yes. The Social Security Trustees Report is the official annual financial forecast published jointly by the Secretaries of Treasury, Labor, and Health and Human Services. It is not opinion. It is not a think tank projection. It is the government's own math on its own program. And the 2026 version contains a number that most Americans receiving Social Security benefits have not yet seen. The OSI Trust Fund, Old Age and Survivors Insurance. The fund that pays retirement and survivor benefits is projected to be depleted in late 2032. Not bankrupt, not eliminated, but empty of reserves, meaning Social Security would be able to pay out only what comes in from payroll taxes each month, and payroll taxes, at current rates, cover approximately 78% of scheduled benefits, which means a 22% automatic cut across the board for every current and future beneficiary. Unless Congress acts before the reserves run out, this is not a retirement planning opinion. It is the government's own projection on its own program, published 6 weeks ago. And if your retirement plan was built before you knew this number existed, it was built on an assumption that may no longer hold. Sandra is 68 years old. She lives in Phoenix, Arizona, and spent 31 years teaching high school before retiring at 67. She began receiving Social Security at 67, collecting $2,200 a month, a benefit she had built over 3.5 decades of consistent contributions. She had a financial plan. She had a Medicare supplement policy. She had a small IRA. She thought she had thought through most of the important questions. In July, she read a headline about the Trustees Report. She did not trust the headline. She did what more people should do. She went to SSA.gov, found the Trustees Report directly, and read it herself. She found the 22% figure. She sat with it for a while. She did not panic. She did something more useful. She picked up the phone and called her younger brother Michael in Nashville. Let me explain what 22% actually means on a monthly statement. The average Social Security retirement benefit in 2026 is approximately $2,083 per month. A 22% reduction takes $258 off that check every single month, permanently. Over a year, that is $458 multiplied by 12, just over $5,500 in annual income that was in the plan and is now in question. Sandra receives $2,200 per month. 22% of that is $484. $484 less every month. $5,808 less every year. Over 15 more years of retirement, that gap accumulates to $87,000 in household income that her current plan does not account for. The fund that is running short is what the trustees call the OSI Trust Fund. It is separate from the Disability Fund. When the reserves are depleted in 2032, Social Security does not stop. The program continues, funded by the payroll taxes that come in each month from current workers. But those taxes cover only about 78 cents of every dollar the program owes. The 22 cents that is missing comes from the reserve that will no longer exist. Here's the calculation worth running today. Go to SSA.gov and log into your My Social Security account. Find your estimated monthly benefit at the age you plan to claim. Multiply that number by 0.22. That is the annual reduction if the cut happens and Congress does not act. Multiply by the years you expect to collect. That is the lifetime gap between the retirement you planned and the retirement the government's own projections currently describe. Sandra's brother Michael is 61 years old. He spent 27 years in logistics and now works part-time. He had not yet claimed his Social Security benefit. His plan, built years ago, was to wait until 70, the age that produces the maximum monthly benefit, and use those extra years of work income to fund his transition. When Sandra called him, Michael pulled up his Social Security statement for the first time in 3 years. His projected benefit at age 70 was $3,400 per month. His first question was the one most people ask when they hear about the 22% cut. Should he claim earlier to get more years of full benefits before 2032? It is a reasonable question, and the answer requires understanding something planners call the break-even age, the point at which waiting to claim produces more total lifetime income than claiming early. The standard break-even calculation assumes your benefit stays constant at whatever the schedule says. If a 22% cut arrives in 2032, the break-even math does not disappear, but it shifts. Here is what Michael's numbers actually show. If he claims at 62, he receives a reduced benefit, roughly $2,100 per month under current rules. With a 22% cut applied in 2032, when he would be 68, that benefit becomes approximately $1,638. If he waits until 70, his benefit is $3,400 per month. With the same 22% cut applied after he starts receiving about $2,652, waiting until 70 still produces a higher monthly benefit after the cut than claiming early. But the gap between claiming at 62 and claiming at 70 narrows because both numbers get reduced by the same percentage. The break-even age shifts somewhat earlier. The margin that favors delay becomes a little smaller. The cut does not make claiming early the right answer for most people. What it does is change the assumption that waiting until 70 is obviously automatically optimal without any risk. It introduces a variable that the standard advice does not account for. Here is the calculation worth running today. Go to the Social Security Benefit Calculator at SSA.gov. Run your projected benefit at 3 ages, 62, your full retirement age, and 70. Then apply a 22% reduction to each number and calculate how many months of each scenario you would need to live through before one outperforms the others. That calculation, for your specific numbers, is the one worth having before you make any claiming decision in the next few years. The third piece connects to something this channel has covered before, but in a new way. If Social Security is reduced by 22%, the income gap that creates has to come from somewhere. For most retirees, the options are spend less, draw more from retirement accounts, or have money in a Roth IRA. A withdrawal from a traditional IRA or 401k counts as ordinary income. It adds to the income that determines how much of your Social Security benefit gets taxed, and it can push you toward Medicare premium surcharges under IRMA. A withdrawal from a Roth IRA does neither of those things. It does not count toward the income thresholds for Social Security taxation. It does not affect your IRMA tier. It does not generate a required minimum distribution that forces you to take income you did not plan for. Every dollar in a Roth that covers living expenses in retirement is a dollar that does not make your Social Security check smaller through the tax code. A traditional IRA withdrawal can trigger taxation on 85% of your Social Security benefit on top of the withdrawal itself. A Roth withdrawal cannot. That difference is meaningful in any scenario. It becomes significantly more meaningful when the Social Security check is already 22% smaller than the number your plan was built around. Sandra called her financial advisor the week after she read the Trustees Report. She asked 2 questions. First, does the 22% scenario change what I should be doing with my IRA this year? Second, how much Roth conversion can I do before I trigger IRMA? Her advisor ran the numbers. The answers were specific to Sandra's income, her IRA balance, and her bracket. That specificity is why this is the conversation worth having. Not eventually, but before December 31st of this year. Here is the calculation worth running today. Start with your projected Social Security benefit. Subtract 22%. Look at the gap between that number and what your retirement spending actually requires. Ask, how much of that could a Roth IRA fill without creating additional taxable income? For your specific account balances, your bracket, and your age, a CPA or fee-only financial advisor can model this in one conversation. The right answer depends on where you are. The question is worth asking now, while you still have years before 2032 to act on it. The last thing worth saying about what to do before the end of this year does not require a financial advisor. It requires 30 minutes and an honest conversation with whoever shares your household finances. Look at the retirement plan you are currently working from. Find the line where Social Security incomes appears. Now ask, is that number based on the scheduled benefit, or is it based on the scheduled benefit reduced by 22%? For most couples, it is the scheduled benefit. The scenario where Congress fails to act before 2032 appears nowhere in the plan. It has not been stress tested. It has not been modeled. It is the assumption the plan is resting on. For people who are in their 60s and already receiving benefits, like Sandra, the action available before December 31st is largely about tax positioning, managing IRA withdrawals, exploring Roth conversions at current bracket rates, and making sure this year's income decisions account for what is coming. For people who are in their late 50s or early 60s and have not yet claimed like Michael, the action is about revisiting the claiming age assumption with the cut explicitly factored in. Neither of these actions requires panic. Neither requires an overhaul of everything already built. They require one honest look at one assumption that most retirement plans currently treat as settled. Michael and Sandra talked for almost 2 hours that evening. Michael said what most people say when they first hear this number. He assumed Congress would fix it before it became real. Sandra said what she had come to think about in the weeks since she read the report. Congress may fix it. They have done it before and may do it again. But the question she kept coming back to was not whether they would. It was whether her plan was built for the version of Social Security that exists on paper today, or the version that might actually arrive in 2032. Those are two different plans. She decided she wanted to know what her plan looked like under both. Before you close this video, I want to ask you the same question Sandra asked herself. Congress may act. The 22% cut may never arrive. That outcome is entirely possible. But your retirement plan, the one you are currently living with or building toward, was it designed for that possibility? Or was it designed for the assumption that the scheduled benefit is what you will actually receive? If you have not tested your plan against the 2032 scenario, that is worth doing before the end of this year. Not eventually. This year. Because the 2032 date gives you 6 years to make changes that become more expensive or less available the longer you wait. Tell us in the comments, did you know about the 22% cut before today? And has it changed how you think about your claiming age or your Roth strategy? We read every comment, and the conversation in the thread on this video tends to matter as much as the video itself. Subscribe for a new video every week on the retirement rules that most people find out about too late.